Hello, and welcome to Hookah Unlimited. Today, we're going to be filming a very special video. One that's really dear to our hearts, to my heart. Now, I don't know if some of you guys know or not, but on January 17th of this year, we lost someone very important and someone very significant to the hookah industry. He was a legend, an icon amongst enthusiasts in the industry. His name was Eric Hofmann, founder and creator of Tangiers Tobacco. Now, some of you guys may not have known him very personally, and I admit that my relationship with him was more of a fan who looked up to him, wanted to be like him one day, creating his own products and doing these amazing things. But when we lost him, it really affected me. It still does today. But when we were thinking about how we can honor this man's memory, we decided we should film a memorial video to what mattered most to him regarding at least hookah and packing and that sort of thing. Now, Eric was a magnanimous man. He was a very unique man. Everywhere he went, he commanded respect. There was a lot to respect. He created something that many brands, many companies have invested insane amounts of money trying to replicate, to catch up to. He created the first legitimate Darkleaf on the market in 2001. And even though he's been at it for 20 years, he's been at the top of the game for 20 years, not a single brand has come close to the performance factor, performance quotient, the smoothness, the quality of Tangiers Tobacco. So today I'll be showing you guys how Eric liked to pack his bowl, how he liked to smoke his tobacco, and how he managed the bowl, because he understood that the session did not start and end at the pack, but it was an ongoing process throughout the session itself. And we're going to be showing you guys how he did that. We're going to take it one step further and explain why he did it, the way he did it. Now, I remember when I first heard about Tangiers, it was incredible because it was the first time somebody was like, no, you have to use this bowl, you have to pack it this way, and you don't have a choice or else it's just not going to work, and I didn't believe him. And then I bought Tangiers and packed it the way it would pack, Alfacher or Starbucks or whatever we had back then. And lo and behold, it was the worst session of my life. And it wasn't until a little bit later where I dug deep and really understood, made an attempt to really understand Tangiers, what it is and how it's a very unique and very different product. So today we have my favorite Tangiers flavor developed by Eric himself, Summer Solstice. My favorite, that is, outside of cane mint, of course. We have the very first bowl that I still have, meaning I didn't break, that I had to throw away, but the very first Tangiers, the oldest Tangiers small that I have, and it's seen its battle scars. But I thought it'll be nice to use it with you guys today. And also we have something Eric was very passionately working on, the Tangiers Charcoal V2, which are Japanese silver tabs imported from Japan. So with this, we'll get to packing the bowl, and then in the second half of the video, I'll be going over the coals, the nuances of the coal, and how Eric used the coal to accentuate the Tangiers session, so that you could experience Tangiers the way he experienced Tangiers, to the best of my ability at least. But more importantly, to preserve his memory of the way he liked to do things, so that future generations can look back and remember and know a little bit of Eric Hoffman. When it came to packing the bowl, Eric was very, 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 very specific about how he liked his Tangiers to be packed. He's the one who invented essentially the dense pack method, and everything was done by his rules. One of which was to use a oyster fork. In fact, it was Eric Hofmann who first introduced the concept of oyster forks and brought those onto the market and made that the standard for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. In fact, if you go to Instagram or any social media and you look at anybody packing a bowl, they're using oyster forks. Now, that wasn't the case about 15 years ago or even 10 years ago, but it's definitely the standard today. So we're going to be honoring that and using exactly the same method he used to dense pack my oldest Tangier small bowl. So let's begin. To execute a dense pack with the oyster fork, the first thing you gotta do is you just gotta dig deep and grab this big chunk and just put it in your bowl. Now, the purpose of this is basically just load the bowl in a way where you're not touching the shisha at all, and that's actually the key to using the oyster fork, and the reason why Eric was adamant to use the oyster fork. The purpose of the oyster fork is so that you do not touch the tobacco at all. And the reason why you don't touch the tobacco is because he believed that your skin had natural oils on it, and the oils would essentially affect the way the shisha, specifically his tobacco, Tangiers, is gonna burn. Now, how to do it? You guys are seeing the method I'm utilizing. I put it in the bowl and I'm gently kind of rubbing it down and going very fast paced. And you're seeing that it's becoming denser and denser. The rest of it is just cleanup. You don't need to worry too much about what's going on in the center of the bowl, which is the spire. But what you want to do is keep going kind of in this method until everything is nice and even. Remove excess tobacco. And this is something I learned at Tangiers Lounge, the original one in San Diego some years back. Quick way to clear the spire is simply blow out of it, and it's a perfect hole in the center. Other than that, that's about it. He liked to make sure that his bowls were exactly quarters width under the rim. And he had the foil check method that he came up with because people were struggling to determine what that was. And how you would do that is basically go ahead and foil the bowl ahead of time after you finish your pack, and then you would press it down with your hand over the foil, and then you would be able to see exactly the rim line around it. Let me just go ahead and polish up this pack, make sure it's nice and clean. And I'm sure you guys are noticing it's becoming more and more of a dense pack and nice and even. So that's about right for me. There you go, guys. Now, some of you guys that do smoke Tangiers regularly know that this looks a little bit dense, and this is the second part of the Eric Hoffman method, which was to actually go ahead and foil the bowl. And one of the most important things he did after foiling the bowl and after doing the foil check was that he liked to poke holes with his oyster fork. Now, this is a custom-made oyster fork from Spain by Shisha, and it doesn't work that way. But I'd like to take a second and replicate and show you guys exactly what happens when you use something like an oyster fork to poke the tobacco. Alright guys, now that I got a normal oyster fork, I could show you guys exactly what happens to the shisha in the head when you're actually using the poke with the oyster fork method. Basically, so imagine if there's a layer of foil over it, and basically what Eric liked doing is basically poking it all the way through in a very linear pattern. And and his holes were always super tight next to each other. And I'll demonstrate that for you guys, but before I get to doing that, I want you guys to see what happens to the tobacco inside. So when you poke all the way through, you start disrupting the tobacco. You see that? Now it won't fall out when you actually have foil over it, because the foil will stop it, but you're heavily disrupting what's going on inside the head. And this is an important factor regarding the final result of the Eric Hoffman dense pack. After you do this method, the inside of your head isn't exactly a dense pack as you saw it as I was packing it. Now this actually might be a little confusing to some people. Well, why did everybody say it's a dense pack? Well, it technically is still a dense pack. It's technically a dense pack because you start with something like an extra dense, and then you soften it up a little bit and it'll become a proper dense pack. But what I'm trying to say is, this is a reflection of Eric's character and how foresighted he was. He knew that it's difficult to teach people, the layman, how to use his tobacco when you go into the specific sciences of it. I just released the entire density levels series, check it out up there, and that's evidence that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with packing things very accurately. When you get to the nitty-gritty of things, it's not as simple as it seems when an expert who's been doing it for a long time just shows you how to do it. You know what I mean? So he wanted to make a method that you could use with Tangiers, with his product, without having to think too much about what you're doing. Do this, then do that, then do this, and you have the perfect Tangiers pack. When poking your bowl, you would traditionally, and at least with Eric Hoffman's method, go ahead and use an oyster fork. Now, I didn't have the correct one available. I don't have one that's sharp enough, and normally you would sharpen it using a grinder or a grinding stone to get the prongs of the fork to be sharp enough, and I don't have the right kind of oyster fork available to me to do this correctly. So for now, in the purpose of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and use the Hookah Unlimited poker to get the job done instead. And the mission here is to poke all the way through with the intention of disrupting the tobacco, the shisha density in the inside, and we want to go ahead and go all around first, and then fill in the holes all the way through linearly. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, if you have molasses seeping out through the holes because you've poked them so close together, it's not an issue. Don't touch it. Don't worry about it. When you put the correct heat on there, it'll go perfectly fine. Now, once you have your bowl packed, your holes poked, all that's left is to put some coals on your grill and get going. Now, Eric Hoffman was very, very serious about what kind of coals he wanted you to use, and they were these guys. Japanese silver tabs, and he had been working hard on making sure that his Tangiers Japanese silver lights or silver tabs are the correct and best performing ones on the market today. Now, these guys used to be very popular back in the day before coconut coals were out and about. These were definitely the upgrade and the preferred choice amongst enthusiasts over quick lights. They were a little bit less convenient, but they lasted a lot longer and they provided a consistent heat output. And it was really cool because you could just light them on top of each other by stacking them on top. Now, similarly to quick lights, but these are not quick light coals. They do take some time to get started. Now, how Eric liked using these guys is that he would start with, depending on the size of your bowl, this one's a Tangiers small, so we're gonna go with 3 to start, three little cubes out of the 4-piece stick that we have, and he would just kind of knock them off just like that with his thumb sitting back, and he would just put them on top of the coals that were already there. So how we're gonna be doing this is simply, the last one's a little bit tough, is simply we're gonna light them up and place them like so. And when we need fresh set, you would just take one, put it on top of a half-used silver tab, and then it'll heat itself up and you'd be able to smoke. Today though, we're going to be using my Octopus Neptune hookah because Eric was responsible for starting the whole trend a few years ago about the use and of the superiority of copper downstems, and this is the only hookah I have that has a copper downstem. So in honor of Eric Hoffman and his legacy and his memory, I'll be using this one for probably the second time I've ever used this hookah. And if you guys don't know what this is the Octopus Neptune, and it's a fully brass hookah, CNC machined with a copper downstem going all the way down. We're gonna go ahead and get this guy set up for you so that as soon as the coals are done, we could get started. I grabbed the coals. You know that these Japanese silver tabs are fully cooked when they're all red all around on the grill, and they're actually pretty brittle and fall apart quite easily, so much so that you could go ahead and break them down by placing them on the edge of your tray and just tapping them gently, and you could just break them down that way. And if it's ever being too stubborn, you could also grab it and knock it against the tray itself like so, and just from that it'll fall apart. So we're gonna go ahead and put these guys on and we're gonna get the session started. Now while this heats up, let me change the camera and get you guys a sample of how these go. But before I do, I just want to mention that the important thing about silver tabs is that they have a aluminum coating over the coal itself that allows the heat to actually retain inside the shape of the coal, keeping your shape going longer and preserving the coal life and also putting out even heat. Now sometimes when you just leave them standing, they will turn black on the bottom. Sometimes that's totally okay. You would just flip them over, and as heat rises, they will very easily turn red again. All right guys, so I showed you the foil pack, I showed you the poke, I showed you the foiling, I've shown you the coals, the advantage of them, and why Eric liked using them. I'd like to expand a little bit more on that topic as the bowl itself heats up and I get it started for you guys and take a few puffs for you. But basically these coals are low heat, and because Tangiers was intended to be packed dense, Eric preferred to use the right heat amount on his heads so that you could maximize flavor. Eric wasn't really concerned about cloud output. He was more concerned about that nicotine hit, the smooth draw, and the full expanse of the flavor that he created in his product. It wasn't a secret that he would take sometimes years to create a single flavor, not because he tried it and stopped and then a couple years later decided to try again. No, but because he was adamant about perfecting it over and over again, session after session after session, until it was exactly the way he wanted it. And that is the definition of commendable. With that, let me go ahead and take a couple puffs for you guys so you could see how the Eric Hoffman Tangiers method works. Again, this is not going to be a big cloud output, but it's very smooth if you could take my word for it, and you get a ton of flavor, and that nicotine buzz really just captures you in your chest and everywhere, and you just feel it in a different way. So if that's what you guys are looking for, you definitely need the Eric Hoffman method. Now I could put some more heat on it and force it to get bigger clouds, but that would be a bit against the way he liked to do things. But for the sake of showing you guys, I'll go ahead and flip these coals over so the red sides are down. I'm gonna go ahead and add a fourth piece. Put this here instead and take a hit for you guys. Now as you progress in the session, his method doesn't really burn or char or anything like that. The flavor preserves for a long time. There are some people who swear that they've smoked a Tangiers head with a Tangiers large for a whole day, 24 hours. 12 hours was a common thing at the Tangiers Lounge, and Eric liked his sessions around 8 hours at a time. Alright guys, I think I've shown you to the best of my ability what I remember of the Eric Hoffman methodology. The only exception is I didn't show you guys how to poke with the oyster fork because I didn't have the right kind and I didn't have one prepared for you guys today, and I apologize about that, and I hope I could be forgiven. Maybe in the future I could go ahead and show you guys that if there's a demand. So if you guys want to see that happen, go ahead and comment and share your thoughts. But I'd like to wrap up this video about now, and I'm sure you guys have been wondering why I had a bottle of single malt scotch next to me this entire video. And basically Eric loved single malt scotch, and I thought I'd pour a last shot for him. Eric, I hope I honored your memory, and I hope that many viewers in the future and today watch this and remember you and all the amazing contributions you've brought to the hookah industry. Thank you. This one's for you.